Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to all the nominees. Thank you for being here. Mr. Dittelbach, if I could start with you, I want to ask you about what you were just saying. You were a prosecutor, right, for some time.
I was, Senator.
You were the U.S. Attorney in Ohio?
Among other things, I was the U.S. Attorney in Ohio for just under 7 years, Senator.
That was from, remind me of the dates, 2009 to?
2009 to 2016.
Okay. And you were responsible as U.S. Attorney for your district for prosecuting all manner of crimes, including federal firearms crimes. Is that correct?
I oversaw an office that was responsible for federal prosecutions and law enforcement in the Northern District of Ohio.
Right, including firearms offenses. Were those high priority for you?
They were, Senator.
Yeah. Do you think that they should be a high priority?
I think, yes. I think you're working with local law enforcement and state law enforcement together, but together you're working in partnership, and violent crime and gun crime should be a priority. Terrorism is a priority also. There are other priorities, but yes, sure, it is a priority.
Sure. And you just said that you just committed to Senator Feinstein that you'd be very strong in this role. And I assume you think it's important to be very strong as a prosecutor when it comes to violent crime, including firearms crime, like the kind that we saw yesterday. Is that fair to say?
Yes, Senator. I think it is fair but strong, yes.
Yeah. So let me just ask you then about something in your record that puzzles me, and I was hoping you could walk me through it. When you became the U.S. Attorney, there were about 120 firearms and explosives prosecutions a year. By the time you left, there were half that number. And in fact, there was a pretty continuous decline over 3 years, lower year on year, 113 in 2014, 75 in 2015, 65 in 2016, which you just told me was your last year. What accounts for that? Walk me through that.
Yeah, sure, Senator. So prosecuting gun crime, look, from my earliest days as a prosecutor in Maryland, I was the liaison officer, what we then called Project Disarm, which meant I sat with an ATF agent and a PG County detective in a conference room every Monday morning with a stack of cases this high and went through which one should go state, which one, they would tell me, this is a dangerous person, we should go federal, this is a gang case, put it in a third pile. And I have been committed to that for many years. When I was U.S. Attorney, we already had in the office my predecessor, who I worked for and did gun cases for, Greg White, who's supporting my nomination. He had an aggressive program, and we continued it. We never changed our intake guidelines. We never lowered them. There were times where we never raised them. We actually lowered them sometimes. If I got a phone call from Youngstown saying we're having a problem, we would go out and do what we call the VGRIP program. And I did that every summer in one city or another, depending on where the data showed the problems were. And so there were years where our gun crime prosecutions went up. And then there were years where they went down. We didn't change our guidelines. I will tell you, during some of those years, law enforcement, they're the ones who bring you the cases, right? Federal law enforcement and others, and my office too had significant staffing issues. I was U.S. Attorney during sequestration. I was U.S. Attorney during shutdown. I actually, to show people you had to do everything, I sat the reception desk at one point as U.S. Attorney. And so I can't tell you what causes ups and downs in those numbers, but I'll tell you one thing that didn't cause it was any change in our approach to what cases should be prosecuted in our office.
But it's a pretty big drop, isn't it? I mean, 121 cases brought the year you became U.S. Attorney. It's pretty constant then for, as you said, a couple of years, I assume, because you're following your predecessor's policy. And then it begins a steady decline down to 65. I mean, that's half as much. And what I notice is the next year, under your successor, it doubles. So help me understand, I mean, what is this? Was this just not something that you were pushing, or you said earlier, was this the police's fault?
No, it wasn't the police's fault, and it was something that I definitely focused significant time and attention on. The same people in the office who are great career assistant U.S. attorneys ran that program. It wasn't that I was just following the program of my predecessor. I believed in it, and we never changed it. So with respect to these kinds of cases, Senator, I never saw a situation where any person who worked for me in my office was declining cases. There was a time I remember in Akron, Ohio, where this great career assistant, probably one of the most aggressive gun prosecutors I ever met, she turned down a case. She said it didn't match our guidelines. This chief of police in Akron called me, and he said, this is wrong. And I said, well, tell me what's going on. And she said, well, we don't have a predicate that matches the office policy, whatever it was at the time. Yes, but the Youngstown police chief, Jim Nice, just told me they like this guy for 2 homicides that they haven't caught him for, and he's terrorizing a complex. We're doing the case. And we did the case. That was my attitude from when I started to when I finished, and it was my predecessor's attitude and my successors who are all supporting me for this job.
So what you're telling me is you don't know why the prosecutions went in half, or why the cases, these aren't.
There were years it went up, I believe, Senator, also.
Well, sure, and I mentioned, it was about level. I mean, and your high water mark was 160, but then it goes down to 65, and as I said, there's a pattern here. It's a 3-year, 113 in 2014, 75 in 2015, 65 in 2016. But it sounds like you don't know. I mean, that's your testimony.
Yeah, my last day as U.S. Attorney was February 5th of 2016, Senator.
Right. So the cases that were prosecuted that year were in the pipeline under you. Did you study it? I mean, did you look at these numbers and say, this is disturbing? I mean, this needs to change. We need to get tough.
Senator, I think we enforce the law. And I will tell you that cases in that kind of program are very quick turnaround cases. We have to charge within sometimes a week or 2. It's not like a white-collar case. Cops catch somebody in the street who's dangerous, they arrest them, we've got to charge.
So did crime go down during those years?
Crime did go down, but I don't know what the particular cause is. I know we never changed our policy, Senator, and I know that it was an office priority.
Why don't you take that for the record and get back to me on that? And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Let me recognize Senator Coons, who's been waiting. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Whitehouse, and thank you to our 3 nominees in front of us today. I am not a rude man, but I will tell you I have genuinely struggled today. As a number of reporters were just talking to me in the hallway, I and my wife and my whole family, our heart is broken for parents and teachers and faculty and community members and school children who are today living through every family's worst nightmare. To have, again, 19 elementary school students massacred in their classrooms, to have their teachers killed defending them, and to have some describe this as unthinkable, unimaginable, when in fact it is entirely too predictable now. The pain that the Robb Elementary School community and that Uvalde, Texas is living through today is perhaps incomprehensible for those of us who have children, but it is entirely predictable. So I'll make a bold prediction. It will happen again and again until we collectively decide to find a path forward to responsibly address it. And we in the Senate need to have a better answer. While I am a praying man and believe in the power of prayer, I am sick to death of saying that my thoughts and prayers are with parents who are today waking up to the incomprehensible horror of having their child massacred at school. So we can't pretend that we didn't see this coming. We can't pretend that this isn't a pressing issue. And while I respect as strongly as any member of this committee the constitutional rights protected by our Bill of Rights, we need to act to ensure that tragedies like this do not continue happening with astonishing, embarrassing, gut-wrenching regularity. I know not one particular law that we could pass here will prevent every such tragedy, but we have to do more. We have to make it harder for individuals to get access to weapons who have demonstrated the capacity or the potential to use them to harm themselves or their families. And we have to do more to address gun violence. Every week in my hometown and in home cities and communities all over this country, gun violence takes lives in communities of all types and all backgrounds, and we cannot become numb to this. So forgive me, I'm going to focus my questioning at the nominee to lead the ATF. The ATF has been a very important part of trying to tackle gun violence in Delaware and around the nation. And Mr. Dettelbach, I am grateful that you are willing to step forward and to serve. We have not had a confirmed ATF leader in far too long, and it is my hope that we can confirm you. I am struck by the widespread support you have received from law enforcement Your nomination has been endorsed by the International Association of Chiefs of Police, by the major county sheriffs, by Noble, by the Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association, by Women in Law Enforcement, by a bipartisan group of more than 140 members of the Justice Department. And with your forbearance, I'd just like to note a few of the quotes from the letters that members of this committee have received. Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association, with which I've worked closely, says that you have and I'm quoting, proven history of working with law enforcement, corrections officials, advocates, stakeholders, and elected officials across the political spectrum. When I was in county government, responsible for the second largest law enforcement agency in our state, I work closely with the IACP and deeply respect their scope and their service. The IACP wrote that your experience, your expertise, your record of success are evidence of your qualifications to serve as the next director of the ATF. And Noble, which has a chapter in my state and played a key role in my work to try and advance diversity within law enforcement, wrote that you've displayed the qualities of leadership, empathy, excellence, and persistence in supporting and defending our Constitution while enshrining justice for all Americans. I think that speaks highly to why we should confirm you, why we should make sure that in many ways the most important federal agency related to firearms has Senate-confirmed leadership. Could you please briefly describe how you've managed to work collaboratively with federal, state, and local law enforcement in your time as U.S. Attorney to help prevent rising gun crime while still respecting our Constitution?
Senator, and to hear those quotes from the men and women who are on the front lines protecting us every day is humbling. During my time as a prosecutor, 30 years, I think one of the single biggest changes was the level of partnership between federal, state, and local law enforcement. When I started, there was speeches that you got about how it's a one-way street. We tell you what we want on the federal side, you don't get to hear. That's gone. That's no longer the case. And to me, the task force and that partnership is the single biggest advance and the biggest weapon we have to fight violent crime together. And so I believe deeply in it, and I believe that the ATF especially has been on the forefront of that. The ATF is a boots on the ground.
Đường xưa em đi vang lên mái tóc thề ngõ hồn dâng tái tê anh làm thơ vu quy khách qua đường lắng nghe chuyện tình ta đã ghi những mùa trăng vu quy vì mưa gió không về chiến trường anh bước đi có nàng hoen đôi mi ngóng theo đường vắng hoe hỏi còn ai có chi anh ơi nhìn gió lên khơi lòng có trông vời một người xa cuối trời nơi đây phiên gác canh dài ấp đôi lời mình còn nhớ thương hoài anh ơi màu áo phong sương mình ước huy hoàng được bàn tay chính nàng dâng hoa dâng hết ân tình tình đến bao giờ hỏi đường xưa mà nhớ con đường xưa em đi thời gian có quên gì đã mòn kia vẫn ghi một đêm trăng thanh quán bên đường vắng tanh chỉ còn em với anh. tóc thề ngõ hồn dâng tái tê. Anh làm thơ vu quy, khách qua đường lắng nghe chuyện tình ta đã ghi. Những mùa trăng vu quy vì mưa gió không về, chiến trường anh bước đi. Có nàng hoen đôi mi ngóng theo đường vắng hoe, hỏi còn ai cố chi. Anh ơi nhìn gió lên khơi, lòng cố trông vời một người xa cuối trời. Nơi đây viện gác cánh dài, e ấp đôi lời mình còn nhớ thương hoài. Anh ơi màu áo phong sương mình ước huy hoàng, được bàn tay chính nàng dâng hoa dâng hết ân tình. Tình đến bao giờ hỏi đường xưa mà nhớ con đường xưa em đi. Thời gian có quên gì đã mòn kia vẫn ghi một đêm trăng thanh, quán bên đường vắng tanh, chỉ còn em với anh. Ghi một đêm trăng thanh, quán bên đường vắng tanh, chỉ còn em với anh. Ghi một đêm trăng thanh, quán bên đường vắng tanh, chỉ